All right, thank you everyone for joining us. We're very excited to bring you this forum today. The forum is sponsored by the Illinois Valley Community Development Organization and the Grants Pass and Josephine County Chamber of Commerce. And my name is Josie Malloy. I am the president and CEO for the Chamber of Commerce. And we also have Lindsay Jones. She's with IB Can Do. And did you want to say anything, Lindsay, before we start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to again welcome you all to the Josephine County Virtual Forum. So I'm Lindsay B. Jones. I'll be moderating the technical aspects of tonight's event along with Kenny Hauk and Forrest Roth. This forum grew out of the success of the community-led candidates forum in the spring. Tonight's forum is hosted by the Illinois Valley Community Development Organization as well as the Grants Pass Chamber of Commerce. And a recording of tonight's event will be available as soon as possible on the grantspasschamber.org website and Facebook, as well as the Illinois Valley Community website, www.illinoisvalleyweb.org. And radio rebroadcasts will be hosted by KXCJLP 1057 FM Cave Junction on Tuesday, October 20th at 6:15 and Saturday, October 24th at 11:15 a.m. The candidates have reviewed and agreed to the rules of this event. You can access the rules by following the link in the chat box. And next, I'll go over a few technical suggestions and guidance. So for your audience participants, I suggest using Zoom's speaker view. So if you're seeing my face in a big box right now, you're probably in the right place. If you're seeing a bunch of little boxes, Brady Bunch style, you'll want to go up to the upper right corner of your screen and click on what says speaker view to switch the view. Participants are unable to unmute themselves, but if you have questions, you can send them in the chat box to Forrest Roth. You'll find the chat box located at the bottom of your main screen when you hover over with your mouse or tap with your finger. Near the end of the event, we'll have time for a few participants to ask questions directly to the candidates. You can use the chat box to submit your questions ahead of time to Forrest. Not every audience question will be used tonight. Please keep your questions to the scope of the candidate's work and indicate if it is a question for the treasurer, commissioner, or all candidates. And with that, I will turn it over to the moderator of tonight's event, the president and CEO of Grants Pass Chamber of Commerce, Josie Malloy.
Good morning. Or good evening. Thanks for having me as the moderator. So we are going to start with the treasurer candidates. And we have Eve, Arce, and Jim Rafferty. And Jim is joining us on his landline, so you will not see his video. And for the treasurers, they're going to start with a 2-minute introduction. And Lindsay's going to draw out of the bag who gets to go first. All right, Eve, you get to begin with your introduction and you have 2 minutes. Oh, she's still muted, I think.
Good evening, and thank you for having this. I really appreciate it. My name's Eve Arce. I am the current treasurer for Josephine County. I lived in Grants Pass for nearly my whole life. I attended Grants Pass schools and graduated from Grants Pass High School. I've been married for 40 years to the same man. We've raised our 2 children here in Grants Pass, and we have 3 grandchildren here. I've worked for Josephine County for over 25 years now. I started as an accounting specialist in 1995, and I've held every position that this office has had, accounting specialist, accounting technician, then went on to deputy treasurer or tax collector, then deputy treasurer. And then in 2012, I ran for treasurer when the current treasurer decided to retire, and I started my first term in January of 2013. When I started work here in 1995, we had 7 full-time staff. Due to budget constraints and luckily technology advances, we now have only 3 full-time employees and myself. With such a small staff, everybody is cross-trained so that if somebody takes a day off or calls in sick, we have coverage for the to make sure the duties are done. Customer service stays a priority, and this also ensures that our internal controls are followed and we have safe keeping of our assets. Banking is a daily task. We also do many other things here. Treasurer is in charge of investments. We do tax collection. We handle over $80 million a year that flows through this office. Thank you. I hit the end.
Great, thank you so much. And now we're going to turn it over to Jim for his 2-minute introduction. There you go.
Okay, am I there now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, let me start over. Yeah, thank you and good evening. This is Jim Rafferty. Did you know that the Reveille call starts a new day? I hope to start a new era by electing me your new Josephine County Treasurer on November 3rd. You elect people to represent you and to keep your best interest in mind. I will be answerable to you and, of course, to the United States Constitution, Oregon state law, and Home Rule County Charter. Simply put, I will not seek or accept any type of retirement or health care benefits. Why? Because I believe in a citizen government, not a government by career politicians that burden the taxpayers. As my bosses, you are entitled to a copy of the Treasurer's Report on a monthly, quarterly, and semi-annual basis as presented to the Board of County Commissioners. And I'll report to you on all other matters dealing with your Treasurer's Department. Candidates usually have campaign promises. As your Treasurer, I will look into the possibility of sharing Josephine County's interest income with you, the taxpayer. And then I will explore the idea of locally investing county's surplus funds, if there are any, to aid our economy. You know, remember, I'm your constitutional conservative candidate who even knows how to balance a checkbook. Lastly, the voter's pamphlet references my bio, except that I was married to Lorraine for 25 years and now widowed since 2017. Thank you for your kind attention, and God bless.
Great, thank you, Jim. And so we'll be rotating through each candidate, so each of you have a chance to go first on questions. So actually, Jim, we're going to start back with you for the first question. And it will be, and you have 1 minute to answer. Please describe the role of the treasurer position. It looks like you're still muted.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute.
Yep, you're good now.
I didn't realize I had to do it on my own. Well, the Treasurer's Department is actually the county's bank, and it's responsible for the collection, distribution of investment monies for all the Josephine County funds, the Treasurer's Trust, agency funds. You know, it goes on and on and on. And it's mandated, in my opinion. I think it's mandated by the by ORSs, by Oregon state statutes. So it's really a simple. I shouldn't say simple. It's really a job that anybody can do, because the requirements aren't like they would be for like a surveyor or a sheriff, where you have to have additional required experience. I've been in business for over 26 years, and I have done a lot of things to, with the community as well.
Great, thank you. And Eve, we'll turn it over to you. Please describe the role of the treasurer position, and you have 1 minute to answer.
Thank you. Jim is right. We are the county's bank. We are responsible for all of the revenues that come into the county from all the departments, whether it's over the counter or it physically, or if it's already deposited into our banks. We have several bank accounts. They are, and you have to figure, it's not just a simple bank account. We remember this, we've got thousands of transactions a month to balance and reconcile. We also have trust monies that we have to take care of, monies that are deposited for us that we're holding for others. In this room, we also do tax collection. So when the taxes are given to us, we're collected, we actually send that money back out to the districts within a very short time frame required by statute. We have reporting requirements that we put out on the website, the quarterly reports, and lots more. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And now, Eve, you will begin with the second question. What skills do you have that qualify you for the treasurer position?
Well, as I said in my opening, I have 25 years here. I have held every position. I know everything inside and out. I also have a certification through the Oregon Association of County Treasurers and Finance Officers. I keep up my work education so I can keep my certification up. I also have association with the tax collectors, so I'm always updating my information. I network with other counties to make sure that I'm up to date. I know what's going on. I've been a supervisor in this office since 2006. I had an excellent mentor with the prior treasurer. And I work on committees here. I also participate in management meetings to make sure that I'm up current with what's going on in the county. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Jim, what skills do you have that qualify you for the treasurer position?
Am I there?
Yep, you're good.
Oh, okay. The qualifications for this office, like a lot of like the county commissioners and other offices, is basically a residence. And of course, I meet those requirements because I moved here in '89. I started my business in '92, and I continued in business since '92 to current. The scope of the business has changed some. I have dealt with finances my whole life, actually. And I have the ability to, if you want to call it, learn or go through a learning curve as far as being like the head of the treasurer's department. Of course, you have to give credit to the staff. The staff is a permanent employee, as permanent as they want to be.
10 seconds, Jim.
And the treasurer is an elected position, which means it could change daily or whenever the term is up, 4 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then Jim, we'll start back with you for this question. Why are you seeking this position?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Or
Well, you kind of already touched on this, but why are you running for this position?
Oh, wonderful. I've been asked that numerous times, but the reason, my main reason, is more of a incumbents running unopposed, and wanting or believing in a citizen government incumbents running unopposed doesn't allow the taxpayers or the voters to vote on anybody except for the person that's running. And that happens a lot. You know, we have 10 offices that people can run for the county offices. And not the county commissioners is usually the office that has the most candidates. The other offices don't have that many candidates. So my main reason is because I didn't want the voters to have but one choice. So I stepped up to the plate, and here I am.
Great, thank you. And Eve, why are you seeking re-election?
Well, I am the current treasurer, and I love coming into work. My staff is wonderful. We get along really well. Serving the public, just interaction with the public on a daily basis. And this is just, it is a career for me, and I have plenty of time left to continue. And I think I do a good job, and I'm hoping that the constituents will remember that and vote for me.
Great, thank you. And you'll start with the next question. What will be your 2 top priorities if you get reelected as treasurer?
My top 2 priorities are always the same: the safety of the money and customer service. I believe customer service is very important, especially for taxpayers that come in, because we have more of that public coming in. We try to educate them on how they can get their taxes paid. If they're behind, they can't make it. We work very hard for that. We are constantly answering the phones, answering information, even if it is, who do I need to talk to about a permit? So we're always very courteous. We love, the customer service is one of my first attributes when I look at hiring someone. And like I said, and safety of the money. I always also, with the investments, looking to earn the most money that I can. Right now, the interest rates are not really good, so it's really hard to find a good investment to get a good return.
Great, thank you. And Jim, if you are elected as treasurer, what will be your 2 top priorities?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to unmute, and I had to take the phone away from my ears. So I'm sorry. Am I up now?
Yes. Yep. The question is, if you are elected as treasurer, what will be your 2 top priorities?
Well, I kind of covered that in my opening statement. Not that they're my top 2 priorities, but serving the community and serving the taxpayers and serving the citizens of Josephine County is utmost in my mind and utmost in my abilities. Like I said, I've had my business since 1992, and if the one thing that stands out for all those years has been my customer service to my customers. I've always felt that the customer is always right in my business, and if there was a problem, I'd always allow the customer the ability to be satisfied, and then I would fight with the supplier if that had to happen. That doesn't apply in this case, but I'm just letting you know that that's my background is customer service. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. And now we'll move into the next question. And Jim, you get to start this one. What will be your biggest challenge if you are elected as treasurer?
Am I still unmuted?
You are.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that I unmuted.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yes. My biggest challenge? Is that what the question was?
Yes. Yep. Your biggest challenge you'll face.
Well, the biggest challenge for me will be getting on board and getting my feet wet, as it were. And I'm very good at that. I have, like I said, run my business for, 26, almost 30 years. So new challenges are not new to me. It's just one of those things that you just have to go through. And of course, I'd be relying on the staff pretty heavily at first, but on the challenge is just a ramp-up situation for me, and I'm sure the incumbent will have other challenges. So that's basically all I have to say on that subject.
All right, thank you. And Eve, what will be your biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge right now really is watching for the investment rates to get a good interest rate. We don't have a lot of legislation changing in Treasury side or tax. Not a lot of impact there, a little bit, but we watch that. Our networks really are very up to date on that, and we chat quite often through a Google group. And basically, it's for me, the challenge is helping the taxpayer that is in need and needs the information. That's something that we do on like I said, a daily basis, and we make that a priority for educating the taxpayers and being an information portal. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And now we'll move into the next question. And Eve, you get to start this one. What changes or improvements, if any, would you implement?
Oh, we've got a lot coming forward, actually. I should have put that with the challenges, but our improvements, we are in the middle of a software conversion for tax collection. We've been on the same software since 1997. So we'll be changing from a DOS program over to a Windows program, really different. So it'll be a big learning curve on that for me, my staff. And then right after that, we will be doing a software change on the financial package for Treasury and Finance, and it will be countywide. So those will be really big improvements coming forward. I hope they're improvements. But we're always very conscious of making sure that we get the technology out there and everybody is up to date on their education and knows what we need in this office.
Thank you. And Jim, what changes or improvements, if any, would you implement?
Again, I had to unmute, so I didn't have the phone near my ear.
Oh, no, that's fine. So the question is, what changes or improvements, if any, would you implement?
Well, I don't know about implementing because the Treasurer's Department is mandated and is a function of the county. Again, it's the county's bank. So other than what the incumbent was talking about, the computer upgrades and things like that, I just don't know until actually I get my feet wet or get elected, and then I can go into those kind of topics more knowledgeable. If I do it now, then it'll just be a pie in the sky type of thing and one of those campaign promises that may never come about. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim. And you'll start us again for the next question. And this one, you probably already touched on it, but another chance, what value will you add to the office if elected?
Experience, business experience, rather than government experience. I think, again, I really stress this, back to the citizen government. That's something that I think is very, very important for voters and general people in general need to realize that being a citizen government means that you don't need term limits, because you do 1 or 2 terms max, and then you pass the baton to a new person, a new area of expertise, if you will, because everybody has their own expertise. And in my opinion, if you keep the same person in there for a million years, then that expertise is kind of stale, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Eve, what, if you are elected or re-elected again, what value will you add to the office?
I believe my knowledge in the office of the statutes and the mandates, what we need to do, speaks for itself. I've been here. I know what we need to do. I know it backwards and forwards. So I think just continuing moving forward with me will definitely give us a smooth going forward. Just keep the running of the office in a smooth way. Sorry. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, that is all of our questions, and we're going to move into closing comments. So since Eve got to go first, we'll let Jim kick it off with the closing comments. So Jim, you have 2 minutes for your closing comments.
Okay, I'm back to unmuted again. So my closing comments, am I ready for that?
Yes, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. In closing, my campaign is managed and funded mostly by me. However, since I'm reporting to Arce under ID number 19236, you can donate if you like. I will use the donations for more radio ads. Although you can also help me by spreading the word and picking up some of my campaign signs and literature located at the Selma Hardware Company store, and the address is 18398 Redwood Highway, across the highway from Ray's Market in Selma, located in the Selma Post Office Complex. So if you want to ask me more questions or make comments, you can email me at rfcc, the @ W4, the number 4, acg.com, or call me at the hardware store Wednesday through Sunday at area code 541-597-4941, or even contact me at home after 6 p.m., please. Area code 541-597-2306, or on the web. For more detailed information, you log on to www.w4, the number 4 again, acg.com, and link to my homepage. It's right under Art Robinson's. I want to thank you all now for this forum, and I hope it was helpful. Well, folks, that's it. Please consider voting for me, Jim Rafferty, for Josephine County Treasurer, your constitutional, conservative candidate who even knows how to balance a checkbook. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. And Eve, we'll turn it over to you for your 2-minute closing comments.
Well, thank you for attending, and also for hosting this forum for us. It was very enjoyable. I just really thought it was nice. In closing, I just would like you to think about re-electing me to continue the work that I've done in the last 8 years, keep the office running smoothly, and don't forget to pay your taxes. The bills just went out. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Eve and Jim. We really appreciate you joining us tonight, and we greatly appreciate that you kept with our time. We really appreciate, and good luck on your races.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, well, that concludes our treasurer race. And now we're going to switch gears and go into the commissioner race. So we have joining us Ron Smith and Commissioner Dan DeYoung. And we're going to have Lindsay pull out the name for the first candidate to go. All right, Commissioner Dan DeYoung will be kicking it off with his 2-minute introduction comments.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. My name is Dan DeYoung. I am the current sitting commissioner in position number 2 here in Josephine County. I was born right here in Josephine County and went to high school, all through the grade school and high school, graduated in 1967 from Grants Pass High School. I went in the United States Navy. My public service started when I was 18 years old, joined the United States Navy and served aboard ship for 4 years. I was honorably discharged in 1972. While I was in the Navy, I married my childhood sweetheart, Pam, and we have 2 children and 6 grandchildren. Pam and I remain married today at 51 years. We celebrated 51 years together. So I'm in it for the long haul on just about everything I ever do. I've also been, when I got out of the Navy, I started in community service. The Oregon Cavemen used to be a real strong booster group for Josephine County and the Oregon Caves. I was a member of that for 6 years, then joined the Grants Pass Active Club and served for, until president on the Active Club. Once you're in the Active Club, they never let you go. But of course, they put on Boatneck. Active Club brought Boatneck from borrowing $1,250 at the bank to pay the race purse into the huge organization and community service that it does today. I've been in business for myself since 1981, and with All Seasons Heating and Air Conditioning, that company still lives today. I've been on the Grants Pass City Council for 7 years, then applied for and ran for, I ran in 1912 for the Board of County Commissioners, was unsuccessful at the primary, and then tried again in 2016 and was successful. So I've been a county commissioner for the last 3 years. Been very rewarding. The thing that I like most about being a commissioner is the people that I work with. It's a very high functioning government entity, and I'm proud to serve and stand right next to everybody here that works in the government itself.
Great, thank you. And Ron, we're going to turn it over to you for your 2-minute introduction.
Well, I want to thank the Chamber and the Illinois Valley Community Development Committee for this meeting. It's I think it's one of 2 we've had in the general. I'm Ron Smith, candidate for Josephine County Commissioner position 2. I was born in this county. My background is in business management. I'm a former small business owner and a jack of all trades, a master of a few. I've traveled the whole country, but this is my home. I've seen all of the United States, and I'm back here to help make Josephine County better. I've been involved in the community. My service has been with the Fruitdale Grange and the Granges. I was a board member of the Pomona Granges, which is all the Granges in the county. I've been a member of the Lions Club, and I've been an active member in grassroots organizations for many years here. My family homesteaded in the Illinois Valley 120 years ago. My father's side of the family came to Oregon in the 1930s. I have a lot of relatives here in the county. In fact, my kids and my grandkids are here. And I want to make Josephine County a great place for my great grandkids to raise a family also. My main priorities is to make sure we have law enforcement covered. I'm not a big guy on taxes, so I'm going to look for other ways to fund the sheriff. For 80 years, we had a fully funded sheriff through timber harvest. I think we're going to have some of that money come back because we've had a positive lawsuit of the OC. I think one of the big problems I see in Josephine County that I don't hear any elected official talking about is the meth and heroin. And meth and heroin is one of the biggest contributors to the crime in our county, and it's one of the biggest contributors to the homeless. If you listen to the law enforcement on the crime problems on the radio, it's almost all related to meth, heroin, or alcohol. And it's a huge problem. And I don't see any elected official even talking about it. That's sad. We have a tremendous housing shortage.
Great, thank you. And Ron, we'll be kicking off the first question with you. Where do you see the county in 5 years? What would be the biggest improvement you think will happen to our community in those 5 years?
Well, we're faced with some challenges here. We've had a severe lockdown in our economy. I know that there were a lot of small businesses here in Josephine County that were severely suffering and hurt through that. Read information that they expected 60% of the small businesses that were shut down are not coming back. So our challenge is going to be to streamline the process for business startup in the county. We need to put the image out there that Josephine County is a great place to do business. So when an investor comes and looks at us, he doesn't run away because he can't get it done. I know quite a few people that have tried to accomplish that in the county, and there's a lot of hurdles to get over. So we need to streamline the process for business startup. We need to address the housing issue. We need to make sure that this meth and heroin problem is right there, that we stay focused on it.
Great, thank you. And now, Dan DeYoung, where do you see the county in 5 years? What would be the biggest improvement you think will happen to our community in those 5 years? And you have 1 minute to answer.
Well, one of the major things that I think both of us are really strong on law enforcement here in Josephine County. 4 years ago, law enforcement, our jail was on the verge of closing. We were down to 48 deputies, 48 people, personnel in the sheriff's office. And we've improved that considerably in the first 4 years, but we've got a long ways to go. We would, I think, if I talk to just about anybody on the street, either here in the Valley, North Valley, or wherever, they're really interested in getting back to 24/7 patrol. So we're going to work really hard at seeing that that can come about. Stable funding is going to be the hard part. There's also going to be a huge influx of people from California moving in here after this COVID-19 thing ends up. And with the tax situation in Southern California, I think we've got to get real creative on how and where we're going to put these people. And at the same time, keep in mind that we have to have exclusive farm use in case we have to feed ourselves at some point in time.
Great, thank you. Now the next question, you both have already touched on this a little bit, and Commissioner DeYoung, you will be kicking us off. The county public safety levy will be up for renewal by 2022. Will you support putting a public safety renewal of some kind on the ballot?
Yes, and just for clarification, the levy, the 93-cent levy that we campaigned for when I first came into office, the sheriff and I did an awful lot of town hall meetings. That was for to keep the jail open and staff the jail, and also reopen the juvenile detention center that had been closed for 12 years. So that will be the ask. And whenever we go to the voter with a levy, the language on that has to be quite specific. So it's just not carte blanche and we're going to use it whatever we want to. So, but yes, the question is, would I bring that back up? Yes. And Sheriff and I are already having conversations. We've got an eye on the future as to see where his money's coming in and how he's doing with it. We had just a presentation this morning from Jim Goodwin, the director of the juvenile department, and he's getting very creative over there in juvenile. I'll touch base with both of those people heavily before we put anything on the ballot. But yes, I will refer to the voter anything that needs to come along those lines.
Great, thank you. And Ron Smith, same question. The county public safety levy will be up for renewal. Will you support putting a public safety renewal of some kind on the ballot?
Taxes, when it comes to taxes, that's totally up to the people. I'm not a big believer in taxes. I support law enforcement. And, you know, for 80 years, we had a fully funded sheriff's department. We had a fully funded government. In fact, we had so much money coming into the county that we created committees to figure out how to spend that money. It's too bad that the boards that went before us didn't see the rainy day coming and put some of that aside in investment. Will I support a levy? I support the law enforcement. I don't support taxes. Taxes are going to be up to the people. If the people want to be taxed, it's a simple process. An initiative petition will get it on the ballot. Taking it as an example, the fire district that the city of Grants Pass wanted to put on, the commissioners put that out there. Had they went to the public, they'd have found out they had no support. So I think the people putting this on the ballot is a good idea because it tells you exactly how much support there is in the county for this.
All right, great, thank you. And now, Ron, you'll begin for our next question. How do you plan on helping businesses thrive while we continue to deal with the challenges of regulation around COVID? Specific examples would be appreciated.
First of all, you got to understand jurisdictions. That's a good question for the city council, because most of the businesses in Josephine County are in Grants Pass and Cave Junction. I think the biggest thing we can help to do business is, as soon as possible, eliminate the lockdown on COVID and let business get back to its regular operations. Okay. The other thing we can do is we can streamline the process for business startup, cut the cost of planning, and all the red tape they got to go through, but roll out the red carpet and invite some new businesses into our county. We haven't had any good big manufacturing in our county in a long time. Lost our last sawmill. That was a good paying job that went out there. At one time there were quite a few sawmills here. But what are we really producing here in Josephine County? We need to look to the future. We need to invite some industries in there. So we need to streamline that process and give them some incentives for doing business here in Josephine County.
Great, thank you. And now Commissioner DeYoung, same question. How do you plan on helping businesses thrive as we continue to deal with the challenges of regulation around COVID? And specific examples would be appreciated.
Well, the first thing that has to happen is that we need to get back to some sort of normalcy. We've kind of got our hands tied from the state with the governor and her mandates, and doesn't look like she's willing to ease up on those. We've got businesses here in town that, although it's a you bet, go ahead and open, ignore what the governor says, but they're held like, for instance, a restaurant. Let's use Elmer's, for example. It has a cocktail lounge in the back. We go in there without masks and we, raise all kinds of dickens about we're not going to follow the rules. That gentleman loses, Dave Thomason might lose his, he's at risk of losing his liquor license and his ability to be in business at all. The restaurants are really hit the hardest because they work on a matter of how many chairs that are that they can fill. That's what they just divide that up and pay for their business. We've here at the county, we took $100,000 out of economic development and put it forth in grants to help the businesses, small businesses that didn't receive anything else, get through this COVID crisis.
Great, thank you. And on to the next question. And Commissioner DeYoung, you will be beginning this. Josephine County is facing a broadband access problem, especially in the rural areas. As a county commissioner, how can you help find a solution?
We've been working with the broadband people and, especially hardest hit. We have a real situation here in Josephine County. We have a lot of hills and valleys and dales, for instance, if you were in Oklahoma or whatever, you just put up a tower and reach the whole state. But here we have all kinds of different towers and things, and still we're finding a huge portion of Josephine County that just does not have service. So we're working with a number of different companies. We're just starting to get some fiber optic into the valley, and but I think our big challenge is out in the Illinois Valley. To get some broadband out there, mostly to the schools. I'd like to see us get to the schools because that's probably where the learning curve is. And then for businesses, you're absolutely right when we say we don't have a bunch of businesses that move in here. And a lot of it has to do with our communication and technology availability to us here in the Valley.
Great, thank you. And now Ron Smith. Josephine County is facing a broadband access problem, especially in rural areas. As a county commissioner, how can you help find the solution? Oh, you're muted right now.
It's funny because I used to live in Selma and I had broadband through Frontier on my telephone. So I don't understand why we can't get that good service on a lot of these telephone lines. I think we need to, again, make it profitable and give an incentive for businesses to come here. They just passed a cell phone tax at the state level. Now, we don't exactly know what that's going to generate it for us, but that money is earmarked for broadband in rural Oregon. So that's money that's going to be available. Challenge is the lay of the land. Even radio in this country is kind of hard to come by. If you're using a handheld radio or shortwave radio, you have to have a tower that's up. The mountains are getting in the way. I'd like to see it, but I don't understand why there isn't more access because most people have landlines to their houses. I was getting broadband on my landline in Selma 15 years ago. So why are the telephone companies not offering that broadband service? That's something we need to check out because it's good.
Thank you. All right, and then we'll begin with you again, Ron, for the next question. What is your stance regarding the transient lodging tax that is being discussed at the county level?
The lodging tax?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I'd want to talk to industry. Part of the problem was when that tax was first proposed, industry was not in the equation. They were left out. And when the industry came to the meeting and said, well, why aren't we informed about this? I think that first of all, you sit down with industry and you really want to earmark where that money's going. From what I understand, the money's going to go to 3 different entities, the fairgrounds, youth correctional, and I don't remember what the other one is. But here's the point, it's not that much money. It's not enough to fund those organizations anyway. So we're gonna tax an industry that was hardest hit, one of the hardest hit industries in the COVID lockdown. I think I'd want to give them some space and get together with them and talk about what they can live with and how long before they're ready to have a tax laid on them. I think it's talking to the people who are going to be taxed that's important.
All right, great, thank you. And Commissioner DeYoung, what is your stance regarding the transient lodging tax that is being discussed at the county level?
Well, I'm glad you used the word discuss, because that's exactly what we were doing, was discussing it. And all of a sudden it came out that we were going to, put something on the ballot and see how it flowed. I do have to admit, though, really, I think we should have brought the Hotel Motel Association and Restaurant Association to the table sooner rather than later. We had 3 gentlemen come in from the Hotel and Motel and Restaurant Association, and we had a meeting with me. They were quite concerned and quite upset. I absolutely agree with them. So we have now, the board has put together a lodging tax task force committee type thing, advisory committee, to see how this thing will shape up. They are at the table in that. There's 9 members in it, and they are at the table plus a couple of at-large citizens at large. So when we move, if we move forward to that, one thing we have to consider is that just about everywhere you and I travel or anybody else travels, take a look at the lodging tax. It's pretty consistent around 11 to 12% just about anywhere we go.
Great, thank you. And we'll move into our next question. And Commissioner DeYoung, you'll start us off. As Josephine County grows, what is the county's role in helping with that growth?
Well, one of the things that the land use, for one thing, is going to be a real issue, because as in the city, you can have fairly high density housing. I've got a friend of mine that he's quite upset because he's in some forest resource land, and yet he has 2 ideal home sites. We're in the county. He's just outside the urban growth boundary, and he's struggling with trying to get those home sites approved. So, when we get into the fact that we're running low on housing, rather than pack a bunch of people in here, inside the city and go up, not out, I'd like to see if there's some kind of innovation, to where we can have more homes on a 5-acre parcel instead of just one and maybe an auxiliary dwelling unit, because growth is coming. The city has, I believe, another urban growth boundary getting ready to be in discussion in the city. I'm kind of anxious to see how much of the county they're going to gnaw off with that.
Great, thank you. And Ron Smith, same question. As Josephine County grows, what is the county's role in helping with the growth?
I think the county's biggest participation in that's going to be through planning. Planning needs to be streamlined. It's very arduous to get yourself through the planning process. Permits are quite high. As Mr. Young just stated, his friend's having a tough time even getting his houses permitted. That's a problem. It's a problem for people that want to start a business. You got to understand land ownership in Josephine County. 69% controlled by the federal government, no taxes. We got the vast majority, like 18% is private forest land. And then you got about another 8% that's exclusive farm. You boil up, you have about 8.7% of the land that's private property in Josephine County. So we're gonna have to lobby the state to loosen up on their land use laws, because that's really what's constraining growth in Josephine County. Our land use laws in Oregon are the strictest land use laws in the United States. We need to have them streamlined and lobby the state to reduce those land use laws.
Great, thank you. And Ron, we'll start with you again for the next question. Could you describe an important community initiative to you and explain how you would partner with stakeholders to support that initiative?
I would like to see an initiative as far as harvesting these dead fire-killed trees off the forest. So this is going to take a community effort. If you think about it, just a small percentage of those trees killed by the fire, if they're harvested in a timely manner, that would solve our problem for funding the sheriff, and it'd bring revenue into the county. Not only that, it'd be better for the forest, because when you don't harvest those trees, the forest does not get planted. Did you know that a tree as it stands there and rot releases methane, propane, all kinds of greenhouse gases? So all those dead trees are causing all kinds of greenhouse gases. If we were to harvest those trees, lock that carbon up in those trees, put those trees into something productive, not only do we help the forest, but we help fund the sheriff and help fund county government. So that's an initiative I like to see put forward. Harvest the dead fire-killed trees in a timely manner.
Thank you. And Commissioner DeYoung, same question. Could you describe an important community initiative to you and explain how you would partner with stakeholders to support that initiative?
Well, one of the things, and we get into the timber side of it, I'm going to quote from a letter I got today. Commissioner DeYoung's belief reflects the opinions of vast majority of Oregonians. Simply put, it's to respond quickly and extinguish small fires before they grow out of control, remove dead and dying trees while they still have value, and reforest burned areas as soon as possible. You know, I deal with this. Of course, we've dealt with it on and off for the last 5 or 6 years. We deal with, you know, we're constantly with the Oregon Department of Forestry, U.S. Forest Service, BLM, all of the above. You know, we talk about revitalization of the timber industry here in the Valley. We don't have any mills here because there's a reason for that. There's not enough available inventory here in Josephine County or the very close surroundings to support a mill. So I'm at a real loss as to, I think that ship may have already sailed.
Great, thank you. And just a reminder to the audience listening, you can put questions in the chat and we will review those. But I'll move into one more question just to see if anyone has something they'd like to add. And Commissioner DeYoung, we'll start with you. What steps would you advocate for the county to take to improve the business climate in Josephine County? We've touched on this a little bit already.
Yeah, I had a gentleman call me inside the city of Grants Pass, and one of the things we have to understand is that the city of Grants Pass, most of the business is done right here and also in the city of Cave Junction when we figure day-to-day commerce. The population in Grants Pass almost doubles every day with people coming here to do the shopping. However, from a county commissioners, you know, I think my opponent said something, well, that's a city problem. But everything that's a problem inside the city actually is inside Josephine County. Josephine County is kind of the overseer of the whole thing. I think a lot of it, I think a lot of it needs to be lobbied at the state. There's a lot of restrictions put on older buildings and on buildings. The requirements for buildings and requirements for businesses to open really get kind of out of hand. And a new startup business, a new entrepreneur, there is a ream of paperwork involved with getting started. I suggest a small business administration through Road Community College is probably your best way to get a start. You know, a lot of people start businesses and they fail because they didn't get the proper foundation built. And we have that available here.
Great, thank you. And Ron Smith, same question. What steps would you advocate for the county to take to improve the business climate in Josephine County?
Well, first and foremost, be business friendly. I think a lot of times the county is not business friendly. Back to what my opponent said, the city is their own jurisdiction. The county commissioners have very little to say what's done inside the city. They can encourage the city, but they can't overrule the city. I went to our big problem is the land use. Where would you put a business outside of Grants Pass? Okay, you're going to have a tough time. Most businesses don't succeed outside the cities of Cave Junction and the city of Grants Pass. So I think it's important to work with the city. Planning is a big problem. Zoning is a problem. We have very little commercial land here. You could take all the commercial land in Josephine County, put it together in one hump, take it over to the Boise Cascades lot in White City. It wouldn't even cover a quart of the lot. So we need some zoning changes to help businesses flourish. And we need to encourage business, roll out the carpet, and give them incentives to come and do business in Josephine County.
Great, thank you. And we do have one question from an audience member that they've asked that I asked. So we will start with Ron Smith for this one. So there has been discussion about tearing down the Josephine County Courthouse and building a new one. Do you think this is a good plan, and how much do you think that will cost?
Well, I don't think it's a good plan. I like the courthouse. I think it's part of the historic beautiness of Josephine County. I would hate to see that courthouse tore down. I think the reasoning is it's not seismic. The problem with is we have a Cascadia event. We're not going to be concerned about the courthouse. We're going to be concerned about bridges and roads and how to travel around the county. Cost, they say 30,000. Part of it, 30 million, part of it covered by grant by the state, and the rest of it be picked up by a bond issued by the taxpayers in Josephine County. Problem is, grants are nothing but tax money, so it's all taxpayer funded. I'm not for it. I don't think it's necessary. I think if we want more room in that courthouse, let's build a room for the courts. Let's move the courts out of the courthouse and put them in a new building and keep our Josephine County courthouse, historic, lovely historic building. I can't see tearing that thing down.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner DeYoung, same question. There has been some discussion about tearing down the current Josephine County courthouse and building a new one. Do you think that is a good plan, and how much will it cost local taxpayers?
Well, this whole conversation started with the discussion about putting a fifth courtroom in the courthouse. Then it kind of wandered off to the future plans. Katrina Swaja, who comes down from courts upstairs. Courts are all on the second floor of this building. Admin is on the basement, first floor. And we had a discussion about it. She said that we were in queue on the state is in a rotation to replace all the courthouses in Oregon. And we were coming up within the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. That was about the extent of the conversation. I know there's a rumor that I said, let's tear the courthouse down and put a parking lot there. I never said that. I think that was Ryan Johnson said that was one of the options, but you're absolutely right. What would happen is that it would have to go out. I'm going to guess $30 million, $35 million is a real conservative estimate. I'd say it'd be far more than that. And true, it's all taxpayer money and it would have to go out to bond. I don't for the life of me figure that the people of Josephine County are going to want to support that kind of a transition.
Great, thank you. And we have another question from the audience, and Commissioner DeYoung, you will kick us off for this one.
Okay.
In light of some recent developments in the planning, enforcement, and building departments, would you be willing to have a third-party audit the departments?
We audit certain departments. Right now, we're going through a financial audit, and it happens to be involved with the levy. Every year, we go through an audit to make sure that the money that we're raising from the levy that we campaign for goes exactly where it said. We do audits from various departments, and they come along. I think we could put an audit on just about any department that we want to go into planning and say, okay, yeah, let's audit planning. We can certainly do that. I know that over in Medford, they actually have an auditor on staff. When you use the word audit, people feel kind of threatened by that. But once you go through an audit and that auditor can make you figure out what may be wrong with your department, most departments welcome an audit because it gives them an opportunity to prove how well they're doing. I don't think any of our departments would cringe at having an audit. I think every one of them would welcome it. And if they wanted an audit or we decided they needed an audit, they'd welcome it.
Great, thank you. And Ron Smith, same question. In light of some recent developments in the planning, enforcement, and building departments, would you be willing to have a third party audit the departments?
I would be in favor of that. I know quite a few people in the real estate industry, and there's a planning problem in our county. The planning department needs a review. They need an audit. We need to see how we can streamline that process to help people get businesses and get their permitting done in a timely manner. It wouldn't hurt to reduce cost on some of these things because the longer you draw all this stuff out, the more it's going to cost. So I don't think an audit's a bad thing about government at all. I think transparency in government's primary. I mean, if the people want to know what their government's doing, and how does it hurt to audit a department? It can help them find out how they can improve. But I've had word come back to me from quite a few people that they think that department needs some streamlining and some revamping. I think we need to streamline the whole process. If we're going to bring businesses in here, planning is going to be either a hindrance or a benefit. So we got to decide which way we want to go with that department. We're going to let it benefit business, or we're going to let it hinder business.
Great, thank you. And now we do have another question. And this person, Jill Ham, would actually like to ask the question herself. So if we can unmute her here. All right, Jill, did you want to ask your question? And Ron Smith, you will be starting off answering.
Good evening, gentlemen. I would like to ask this question. So fire was brought to the forefront in our sister cities this summer. I'd kind of like to know what your thoughts are and possible plans for making the lands close to the city of Grants Pass more fire-wise, and to be able to create fire breaks so that it may not have such an opportunity to reach our city. So I'm just kind of curious about that. What would you do?
Well, on any kind of issue like that, the first question is, how do you pay for it? So there has to be some way to pay for that, and I'm all for it. I think we should have some permanent fire breaks. I think we need to take some of these roads that are in very strategic locations, widen them out, thin out around them, so that the firefighters have a solid place to contain these wildfires before they become catastrophic. So the way you'd pay for that is you'd pay for it through timber harvest. There's programs for removing brush and stuff, but they're grants, and grant money's taxpayer money. So I'm a big proponent in actually taking the bull by the horns, working with the Forest Service and the BLM to pick the strategic roads in our county and build some fire breaks. And then we need to go out in communities. I was really frightened for Tacoma when that fire came, because I've driven through there, and it's a hazard that needs to be cleaned up. The brush needs to be thinned out. So we need to do that kind of thing around there. Merlin's in trouble too. So programs, how do you pay for it? That's the challenge.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner DeYoung, same question to you.
Well, one of the things that I find real interesting is that we encourage fire. Cleaning up the brush around your house in rural America and the wildland interface. We encourage all that, and the homeowner gets in there and he puts everything all up in a pile, and he's waiting for wintertime when it starts to rain so he can burn that slash and be done with it. And yet, as soon as it starts to rain, we find out that we're under an air stagnation warning and it's not a burn day. Then he waits till spring and he figures, okay, one of the wet things is spring, I'm going to just go ahead and get that done. And come to find out, oops, we've had to bring on fire season early because we had a dry spring. We've got 6 or 7 big piles up on exit 61 that have been there now going on 3 years and unable to burn those. The Firewise program in the urban interface was a good program, but I don't think it was wide reaching enough because it was severely underfunded. I agree with Ron. I think one of the things we can do is log back some of our roads or strategically around the city, and we can take that timber that would be a fire problem and turn it into logs.
Great, thank you. And we do have another question from the audience. So Commissioner DeYoung, we'll start with you. What is your vision for cities, Grants Pass and Cave Junction, to work together to expand community participation, agencies, and the robust nonprofits that exist here, so we can overcome the long-lasting ideology we currently have in Josephine County? Sorry, long question. Yeah,
very long question. And I wish you could repeat it, but it's going to take some time. Can you narrow it down for me exactly what the question's about? One subject? Yeah,
I would just say, how can our cities work together to move to the next level?
Well, I'm not really sure what the next level is going to be. I hope it's growth. One of the things is I think we're going to have to come out of this COVID-19 thing, and we're going to have to get back to a normal before we can plan on getting even bigger and better. But that's going to be forced upon us. It's going to require some real creative thinking on the part of the small businessman and on a part of the 2 municipalities involved, because once again, we're into the planning side of it. And how do we help businesses get started? There's nothing worse than to have a business start because they think they know what they're doing and have it fail. I've had a number of friends of mine, oh, boy, I've got a great idea, mom's home cooking. Well, maybe mom's home cooking wasn't the ideal thing. Food service is probably one of the hardest things to be in, but it's one of the easiest to get involved in. Moving forward, that's a real tough question. I think it's more for the private sector. to figure out exactly what the niches are and make sure they have a niche. Technology is going to be a big one here because it could be done anywhere if we get the broadband in here to take care of it.
Great, thank you. And Ron Smith, your turn.
And that question was?
So I would just say, narrowing it down, how do we work together for a new vision to the next level, move Josephine County?
So are we talking about business development, or I don't understand what the next level is supposed to be?
Really just full range, business wise, community wise.
Well, I think the first thing I would look at is get government out of the way. I think the biggest problem a lot of times is we're over-regulated. If you look at the stimulation to the economy by the deregulation of business and this current administration, we had the lowest unemployment rate for women, Hispanics, and Blacks in history. And that came about simply for one thing, cutting regulations. I think that's the biggest thing the county can do, is, and maybe the cities can do, is cut those regulations. Like I said, you got to give business an incentive. If we're talking about economic development, I think a bigger problem is going to be how are we going to supply the housing? We're 4,000 housing units short. That's a serious problem. Most of those houses are going to end up being built in Grants Pass and Cade Junction. So we need to work together with those cities as a county government and help them streamline that process to get more of that done. So I think the housing, the homeless are going to be huge issues in the future. A lot of those are going to, the homeless is going to be a community issue.
Great, thank you. So that concludes our question portion. And now we'll move into closing comments. So since Commissioner DeYoung kicked it off, Ron Smith, you will get to go first for closing comments, and you have 2 minutes.
Well, I'm running as the People's Commissioner. And why do I say the People's Commissioner? Because I've worked on the people's side of government for over 20 years, defending our property rights, our liberty, and our freedom for government intrusion. 2, because when you elect me, you get a man of integrity, somebody who will honestly listen and hear your concerns. I'll never forget that I worked for and served the people. 3, I was born in Josephine County. I'm a team player on the people's team. I'm not a politician. I'm just like you, believing in smaller government, more tax-wise government, more financially responsible and transparent government. 4, I have no hidden agendas. I will openly work to see the people's will expressed through county government, to be their voice inside the government. And 4, I'm done letting politicians spend our money on frivolous things, on nonsense, while we're robbed by drifters and choked by fire smoke and gouged by outrageous housing costs. So I'm not a politician. I'm just like you guys. I want to serve the people of Josephine County. I want to make sure that their will is heard. I want to make this a great place for future generations. I think there's some serious issues. Unless we get a handle on the meth and heroin, we're going to continue to have high crime and high homeless. I don't see any elected official talking about that issue, even though it's the major issue when it comes to homelessness and crime. I think that is important that we fund the law enforcement, but I think it's a 3-pronged approach if we're going to solve that problem. We need to have law enforcement. We need to have a detectives department back in the sheriff's department. We're not investigating crime. Did you know they don't even fingerprint a crime scene in Josephine County? Did you know the state and the city do not fingerprint a crime scene? Why do we fingerprint people when we lock them up in jail if we're not going to fingerprint a crime scene? We need the detectives department back in that sheriff's office so they can investigate these drug issues and this crime in our county, and then we can move forward.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner DeYoung, you get the final 2-minute closing comment.
Well, first off, I want to kind of just recap where Josephine County is at this point in time in comparison to where it was, say, back in 2012, when Commissioner Hare had to hand out 120 pink slips in the courthouse in one day because of the fall off of funding, and there was not adequate funding to keep operations alive in the county. Between him and himself and interim commissioners and elected officials, I actually inherited, myself and Commissioner Morgan, we inherited a pretty well-functioning, lean and mean organization. I came in here not with any expectation of changing the world, because I kind of have a business style that I like to work with people. I'm, yes, we're their boss. Yes, I'm liaison to 9 different major departments, but that doesn't mean I look over their shoulder and criticize everything they do and want to change everything they do. I sit back and look and see how it's working. Now, I'm going to use community corrections for one. Community corrections 3 years ago or 4 years ago, when I first became a county commissioner, we'd go to the state functions and they kind of look down their nose at you because we're from Josephine County. Well, right now, the people are calling us from all over the state wanting to know, how is Josephine County doing so well in the midst of all the COVID and in the midst of all the anxiety and everything going on in the world today? Josephine County is starting to become a shining star in Southern Oregon. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that because the fact that we have a fantastic team. My partner talks about being a team player, but at the same time, he's going to go in and take care of this, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. You know, respect is something that's earned. It's not something that's demanded when you get elected. So I look at his past record and what he claims he's done as far as community service and in politics. And with the upcoming next 4 years are going to be really a struggle. I really don't think that this is the time, an adequate time for us to have on-the-job training for the first 2 to 3 years coming up. I ask for your vote.
Great, thank you so much. So that concludes our forum. I want to give a big thank you to the candidates for joining us today, and also all those that joined us live and those that will watch the recording. Ballots do come out tomorrow. Please vote and please educate yourself before you vote. So thank you for joining us tonight. Lindsay, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yes, Josie, thank you so much for moderating tonight. Thank you for the sponsorship of the Grants Pass Chamber of Commerce. And I just love to remind you that the rebroadcast of this forum will be produced on the Grants Pass Chamber .org website and also the Facebook page, as well as the Illinois Valley Community website, www.illinoisvalleyweb.org, and radio rebroadcast courtesy of KXCJ-LP 105.7 FM in Cave Junction on Tuesday, October 20th at 6:15 p.m. and Saturday, October 24th at 11:15 a.m. And with that, we'll end our forum. Thank you all. Good night.